Now, despite being unbeaten in their last 15 competitive games, Gareth Southgate has sent a warning to his England team ahead of tonight's World Cup qualifier against Poland. That unbeaten run, which doesn't count that Euro 2020 penalty shootout final defeat to Italy, stretches back to last year's Nations League, and victory in Warsaw would put them 8 points clear of Poland. But Gareth Southgate is expecting a big challenge.
If we get any sense of complacency, then we're going into a game where we'll be really challenged, and this is a big opportunity for us. We can really take a positive step towards the World Cup if we win in Warsaw. So it's high level of motivation, but also guarding against any feeling that, you know, we're better than we are. We're having a good run of results because we're working hard for each other. We can't just drift into the match. We've got to make sure that our levels of concentration are really high. We're playing a level of an opponent, I think, that is in a better moment. They've won their last two games, and they have some good footballers in the team who will keep the ball a little bit better than Hungary were able to on the night against us. So the detail of how we press and how we defend has got to be spot on.
Spot on, as Matt Upson always is when we speak to him. And would you believe, there he is. Very good morning to you, Matt. Thanks so much for joining us. I guess this is perhaps the biggest test, is it, of Gareth Southgate's England side and their qualifying campaign this time around. So, how do you handle Poland? What do you do here?
Well, so much of Poland does, centre around Robert Lewandowski, for sure. I agree that it's the toughest game in the campaign so far. I think they'll be a tough team to play against. But England themselves are in a good moment. Let's not forget that. And I think we're so accustomed and so used to playing big games against tough opposition. So I think the group's ready for that type of challenge. But Poland definitely pose a real threat, as we know, especially going forwards with one of the best goal scorers in the world.
Yeah, we'll get on to Lewandowski in a moment. Don't you worry about that, my friend. But let's talk about the lineup that he could put out there. Those 11 changes for the Andorra game. Are we expecting another 11 changes for tonight's game?
Possibly. I think that could happen. I mean, it's been very difficult to predict Gareth Southgate's team selection, as we've seen with the Euros. There's always been some kind of curveball that you might not have expected. But I think there'll be a lot of changes. A lot of the players that played against Andorra were players that he wanted to have a look at. It was a fixture where England were expected to win. It was a lot more comfortable. So I just feel that there will be a lot of changes, and you'll see more like the back line and the team that played against Hungary.
Yeah, I guess looking at the team that started against Andorra, would it be fair to say Lingard and Saka maybe had put the best cases forward for selection in this one? But across the team, there's some serious competition, isn't it, for places, especially maybe in those wide areas?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's been an area of the pitch that a lot of people have been debating and wondering who's best suited to play for England in those wide areas. I also think someone like Jude Bellingham, who I thought was outstanding in the first half against Andorra, he's really making a case to be in the team. But again, look at the strength we have in that midfield area, disrupting the likes of Rice and Phillips in the middle there. And then you've got Mason Mount, who's been in outstanding form for Chelsea. So it's great for Gareth Southgate to have this type of talent, to have young players wanting to impress, hungry to get in the team. And then you've got that balance of experience as well. So I think it's strong all round, but you're right, the wide areas for sure, huge competition.
Yeah, OK, let's pick up on Bellingham then, because he was magnificent as well, wasn't he? Can you get, OK, Rice and Phillips, a wonderful combination at the Euros. Then you have got Mason Mount. I'm guessing you want to get in there somewhere. Can you also get Bellingham into a team that includes those three, or does one have to give way in order for Bellingham to get in there?
Well, you'd have to say that one would give way, because unless Jude Bellingham can play high and wide, which probably isn't his ideal position, then you're going to have to lose one of those three. The one thing about Bellingham, I will say, is that he can do both. I really feel he can be an attacking midfield player and play very advanced, more like Mason Mount. But also you can play him next to Rice or Phillips. And I think it will all depend on opposition, because if you're going to really need those two sitters and that solid base like Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, then perhaps there might not be a place in the team for Bellingham in that role. but then he could play higher if you weren't going to play Mason Mount. But to move those three athletes to how well they did in the Euros is a different challenge to Jude Bellingham. But for sure, in certain fixtures, you can play him in a slightly deeper role.
Yeah. Let's talk about up front then. I think a certain selection, if fit, is Harry Kane. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? He scored in both games, but he did miss some chances. Now, obviously, it's going to be a sort of duel, Kane, Lewandowski, and see who comes out on top. Does Kane have a point to prove here?
I don't think he has points to prove. I think he's in a place where he probably hasn't had as big a pre-season and as much action as what he would have liked. I think the key point I look at here with Harry Kane is that he's getting the chances wrong. You know, if he wasn't getting in those positions and his movement wasn't as sharp and he didn't look as interested or as hungry as what he normally is, then I think you'd have cause to concern that he might not be finishing all these chances. It's just a little bit rusty in the finishing. He's still scoring goals, but you're right, he probably should have had more in both the fixtures. But, you know, for him to be playing on a pitch with Robert Lewandowski, whether or not that mentally drives him on a little bit more to want to prove that he's the best striker in the world, because certainly Lewandowski in the past couple of seasons has been very close to that. So it's going to be an interesting duel.
If there was a change in all the international rulings and Robert Lewandowski suddenly said, hang on a second, I found an English grandparent and actually I'm swapping now, who would you pick? Or would you try and get two up front? Is that just what you'd do?
You just change the shape and play two up, Rob, surely. You go back to the old 4-4-2 and just play two up.
Yeah.
You couldn't leave either one of them out of the team.
No. Yeah, but Paulo Sousa admitted, the side are reliant on Lewandowski. OK. I think we'd suss that one. He scored once against Albania, twice against San Marino. He's now gone to 72 international goals. He missed the game at Wembley, didn't it? Right. Let's roll back the years. You're playing centre-back tonight. What are you thinking? How do you stop him? What do you do?
I think he's the type of player that's difficult to stop because he has such an all-round game. And I think whenever you come up against players like that, you know, you look at certain players, well, perhaps they rely on height and aerial ability. Some rely on just pace, so you can drop off and give yourself half a yard. And as a centre-back, you're always aware of the attributes of the opposition, whereas he's so well-rounded. He doesn't mind running behind. He's got a bit of physical presence. He's good in the air. And obviously he can finish. So from a defensive point of view, I think it's about getting players around you. It's a partnership at the back there. And also you've got holding midfield players as well. You want to get your full-back narrow. And at the right time, you just have to protect each other. And I think, you know, one of you can go up against him and be physical, but you've always got to have that one eye on the cover. And, you know, half the chance he'll take it. So you've got to be razor sharp in your concentration.